Welcome back to the Pop Astrologist Presents. This time, Ruby is back in the hot seat to dive into none other than Spice Girl legend, fashion, can we say mogul? Not maybe yet, but fashion icon in the making, Victoria Beckham. Welcome back, Ruby.
Thank you. I'm so excited that you invited me to do this episode. Lifelong stan.
I was gonna say, was she your favorite Spice Girl?
Absolutely. Yes. And it's
Absolutely. The
not, a lot
Libra,
of people
of
are doing a lot
course.
of revisionist history over time. Like I'm like, please bring out your photo albums. I want to see who you dressed as a child because now that she's Victoria Beckham and has David Beckham, like now that she's kind of this all-encompassing pop culture icon. Everyone's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, Posh Spice, Posh Spice. No, there were a lot of babies, there were a lot of sporties, and now they're revising history. But as a child who did not smile often and was quite serious, Posh just lent itself to me very early.
Classic Cap Libra Aquarius right there. I feel like
Literally.
that
Yeah.
nailed it.
And just
I
like the hyper, like awkward kind of humor, like the way he
yeah,
does it in Spice World, the movie, and then as we will talk about in the documentary, like very similar, the dryness, the monotone, the all black all the time. Yeah.
very
All the
chic.
Posh since forever, David Beckham since forever, all of it. Like celebrity crush, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
when he and her got together, I was like, "Oh, who's like Posh Spice dating?" And then I'm like, "Wait, he's hot too." And then
Yeah.
that was my first like souvenir I bought myself when I went to Europe for the first time as a teenager. I went into like a jersey shop and got like the Beckham, you know, like
Oh,
like a defunct one, like
of
like a
course.
a
Yes, yes, yes.
$10 one of like the Beckham 7
Oh my
England jersey,
gosh.
like knowing nothing about soccer, but just like David Beckham, Posh Spice.
Icons. I remember my
And it's
mom actually telling me about them dating. She was like, "Oh my God, Posh Spice is dating David Beckham, this footballer." I'm like, "What? What is happening?" I'm like not even old enough to process. But I think my favorite Spice Girl was not Posh. I think Posh was always too posh for me. I just like
sure.
never felt as posh as Posh, which is ironic now when you like watch back and you like hear how she talks about herself. I was more of I think a ginger spice by default, like no other reason other than I think no one in my friend group at the time was like into ginger spice, and I was like, it's okay, I'll take ginger spice, I'll occupy that role. But I really liked her, and then come to find out she was the one that like inadvertently resulted in the group like disbanding because she like stepped out of the group at first. So I'm like, oh great, great.
I feel like it was hard too because, like a lot of times too with those like girl bands and movies, all that stuff, and that's like why people talk about representations. Like you always wanted one that like looked like you too.
Mm-hmm.
And if the one you looked like you didn't like either, you were like, no, I don't want to do that. Like I was always
Yeah.
like a fan of like blonde people and stuff. And so like also I liked Baby, but I was like, I definitely was like
Mm.
keyed in on Posh, but like Libra, I also kind
Leave.
of had like the baby energy of like the girliness and the
Yeah.
like semi-innocuousness.
Yeah. I mean, it's
But they're
quite
all
in
legendary.
they're all legendary, yes, and we're still hoping for yet another reunion tour because they've had a couple thus far. Moving into Victoria specifically, do you feel like, I guess this is like a double-edged sword. Is it fair to continue to remember her as Posh Spice, or is it time to retire that and let her like just be Victoria Beckham, like this person?
I feel like she's both. I'm trying to think of like someone else that, people are trying to be like, it's kind of like the Disney Channel of it all. It's
Mm-hmm.
like Miley Cyrus is still Hannah Montana, but she's now like we recognize her as
Mm-hmm.
Miley Cyrus. I'm trying to think of other analogies, but like, there are other celebrities where it's like they try to cast behind like that original identity that made them famous.
Mm-hmm.
But you do recognize them as such a person. I feel like I'm like truly blanking right now on examples, but I think of it like when you see like someone who again like went through a certain career phase and then you see them somewhere and like Victoria Beckham at the Met Gala. It's like, okay, they have like risen above what you first thought of them as. And like that's some of like the
Mm-hmm.
group stuff, like you probably think like One Direction, I guess maybe is
Mm.
examples too. Like we don't really think we know that that's why we know them, but like for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, all of them that are solo, like Harry Styles especially, is like really just Harry Styles at this point
Mm-hmm.
that happened to
Mm-hmm.
have originated. And I think before, like these are the ones from our lifetime, but I think there's even people, when we were younger. I mean, like Mark Wahlberg, for example, like most of us, like, well,
Mm-hmm.
not most of us, but you and I sitting here, we're about the same age. Like, we weren't there for New Kids on the Block, but like somebody his
Mm-hmm.
age might still be like, oh yeah, and the first time I saw him was there, but Ricky
Mm.
Martin and Menudo. So like to me, it's like
Mm-hmm.
always gonna be honored because truly she also by carrying into becoming Victoria Beckham as we know her now like immortalized Posh Spice because we don't talk about
Mm.
Baby Spice that way. We kind of talk about Ginger Spice that way because she's credited with having broken up the band a little bit, allegedly. And of
Allegedly.
course, now she's like Jerry Horner, wife of the F1 driver, only wears white, kind of an oddball, eccentric now. You
Her
know,
own wag situation.
yeah, and then Mel B and Mel C are both like singers who have continued their careers and parlayed it into different things too. But we again still aren't like, I mean, that I know of, we're not like in their sporties. We don't talk about that Spice Girl the way we talk about
Mm-hmm.
her. But I think it's the connection between like she parlayed from like her whole identity, always kind of still connects back to that. She
Mm-hmm.
talked a little bit in the documentary, like how they came to like pick that for her. She didn't really identify as that per se, but I feel like she took aspects of herself that aligned with that. And then it's her,
Mm.
like Emma Bunton is not a baby anymore, respectfully.
It
I don't
was
know if that makes
funny.
sense, but
It makes sense. It makes sense. I think, yeah, because it's interesting when you bring up all those examples because I immediately think, yeah, it makes sense that there is always a breakout, whether it's like Beyonce out of Destiny's Child or whether it is Justin out of NSYNC or as you mentioned, Harry Styles out of One Direction. It just felt to me like no one, I mean, Victoria Beckham is like a pop culture phenomenon, but in terms of, I don't know, in terms of like a being deemed as like this success, it it feels difficult for me to say that. And even watching the documentary, I was actually surprised at how long her fashion line had been around for, like 18 years or something,
Mhm.
right? And that's a whole nodal cycle. That's a whole karmic cycle, okay? And when I think about, wow, 18 years, your company is still not profitable until like 2022, barely. And even then, it's still not really profitable. What do we really measure as a successful breakout? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
we recorded earlier today talking about Taylor Swift and Swifties. And, I joked, I was like, when you're a fan of someone, like you're still always a fan no matter what the track record says, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how you
Mm-hmm.
define true fans. So, I've kind of
Mm-hmm.
followed her throughout the whole time, but like, obviously not reading into like, I was too young to pay attention to like, oh, they think that she has it's really not her, it's Roland Mouret doing the
Mm-hmm.
designs on her behalf. Like she's just doing like the celebrity tag on it. I do remember thinking back then, right? Like we would see people with like collaborations at like fast fashion stores like a Walmart or a Target or Kohl's, which is
Yeah.
different from having your own design
Line. Mm-hmm.
line. Yeah, your own line. And I think, that's part of what the story was about and like learning about the bleeding of the money and then the transition into the I really thought it was interesting. I didn't realize the transition into the beauty scheme and how that kind of
Mm-hmm.
worked into stuff, and that
Mm-hmm.
again connected to our discussion about Selena Gomez and how she's made her company really relatable too, because it's
Mm-hmm.
true to her. And it's kind of crazy when Victoria Beckham had like the videos playing that she does on Instagram and TikTok and whatever of her doing those tutorials.
Yeah.
I like because I follow her, like vividly, I recognize those videos as they're playing. You know what I mean? Like it's just very like it did look very just natural. I didn't, which is
Mm-hmm.
like a consumer, I wasn't analyzing it. I didn't realize this is like, oh, we're doing this because I didn't realize it was new either. Like I think I just
Mm-hmm.
there was always makeup and I just wasn't paying attention. So it all
Mm-hmm.
was like very fascinating. But I think just the nature of like continuing to try in itself is a success, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to again, doing comparisons just because we've talked so much today, it's like, you could have a record-breaking album because you did 10 versions of that album. And
Mm-hmm.
this is not a commercial success, but you've done something unique and different every year, and you've done what your best is, and you have the support of your family, and you have like loyalty through your friends and your fan base. And to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's like its own success in itself.
I
Again, I'm
like
going to turn
that.
everything into an optimistic pro Victoria
I
point
know, I
in the
I like
conversation,
that.
but yeah, I really like I'm not a big person into like titles, accolades, awards,
Mhm.
type of thing, like the definition. So
Mhm.
obviously you need a livelihood, but they're fine. So it's like,
They're fine.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
continue to just do this out of a passion for yourself and like a wanting to keep showing people that you're serious about it, and it's not just like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't do well, so I'm going to give up, right? Because that would be very
Mm.
like celebrity take or leave it. Like,
That is true. I was gonna say she doesn't necessarily have like a lot of fixity in her chart. She could be an Aquarius moon, which would make a lot of sense. But you know, when you think about again, you need fixed sign energy in order to really like maintain and go hard at it. So it is quite remarkable that she was able to maintain a business, a failing business that was successful in her definitions of success, but it was not a commercial success. So I think, yeah, that is really important in this Pluto and Aquarius era too. You know, when you think about Pluto and Capricorn, it was all about how much money can you make, how and like how does that translate to success. But I think again, as you said, bringing out Taylor Swift, you can kind of see how that doesn't translate actually to, quality or whether it is considered like a widely accepted definition of success. It is personal to this person, so it therefore is a success. So, looking at Victoria's chart, she is an Aries sun. She is allegedly a Cancer rising. So, her time is a double D rated chart. So, you can't really take that too much into consideration. Although I do think the Cancer rising is quite interesting considering her Spice Girls career. But again, as I said before, Aquarius moon. Now, one thing I'll say is if you haven't watched the documentary, just to level set, this documentary is a three-part limited series documentary that premiered on October 9th. This is why Ruby and I are getting together. We watched the documentary, and so we are referencing the documentary in our conversation today. Overall, I would say this is a very muted reception to the documentary. I was actually quite surprised. I
yeah,
thought I would maybe see more chatter online about it, but I guess between Diane dying and Taylor Swift's album release, like this kind of got
there was a
lost in the
lot.
weeds. Hmm.
Yeah, or if you're a Bravo person like us, there was like so much news this weekend that maybe that's
Hmm.
why it fell quiet. And also, we talked about this a little bit. Alleged documentaries in recent years all
Hmm.
center around like what feels to me like a put on conflict or contrived conflict. And so there's like a
Mm.
drama to it and here's what they're getting over in real time while doing the
Hmm.
retrospective of the career. Or,
Hmm.
something like even JLo, like doing the halftime show, like her documentary was like just about the halftime show. It wasn't about her career. And
Hmm.
this was more, it was done after David's docuseries, which also was a retrospective. And I can't remember, I don't think he had anything going on in real
That
time per
came out
se.
on October 4th,
This show.
2023. So yeah,
Okay.
2 years ago. I don't necessarily recall a whole lot of
Like
stuff
in
with
real
David
time in the
Beckham.
documentary, right? Like he wasn't, I don't think he
Yeah.
had either, but I think maybe because he had the like jokes with Victoria and stuff like that's really what a lot of people took out of that. Or
Yeah, people
they,
remember. People loved her from that, the Rolls Royce
yeah. And I think that's
situation.
why, yeah, this came out too. I don't think that there was like so much demand for it altogether. I think that it was in response to people enjoying her on his documentary. And, it's
Mm.
the same company, the same people doing it as well. I don't know if it's the same director. I don't think it's the same director,
It
but
didn't feel like the same director because I
he
did
was super
feel
involved in David's.
the guy who directed David's documentary, I think directed The Cove, which is a documentary I actually did watch, I think about illegal dolphin hunting in
Oh my gosh.
Japan, which is really great actually. That came out in 2008. But it is interesting. Yeah, it was a very different tone. Like I felt like with David's, there was more. I don't know. I think maybe it's also a different approach, right?
Yes.
Because David naturally was trying to be like, yes, let me talk about things. And, not that Victoria wasn't either, but it, it did kind of feel, and I wrote this down in one of my notes, and maybe you might disagree with me. Watching this documentary, it just felt like she was a little too self-aware of the camera, even though she claims she can't afford to be.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's that for sure. I think there's also a lot of her life was covered in his. because their lives are so
Mm.
intertwined. So you're not going
Mhm.
to rehash because most of the people who are watching this
Mhm.
probably watched that because even if they're like, again, Posh Spice fan, Victoria Beckham fans, they knew she was going to be a part of David. So they're going to watch that for that. And so again,
Mhm.
you don't wanna have, like, the same content over, so, they did a couple little points here and there, but they did more from her POV, right? About, like, all
Mhm.
of the media backlash when they got together, a lot about, like, the weight, watching, about, like, her issues with, like, disordered eating, all of these elements, like, a lot more from her reaction by doing the WAG extreme fashion and identity thing. So I
Yeah.
do agree, she's way more self-aware, she's still always gonna be, like, apprehensive because she got stung so badly, she has a better sense of humor about it, but I don't think she's going to put out anything that she would be sensitive about,
Mhm.
hearing like,
Yeah.
reflecting back to her in any way, whether that's, like, criticism or jest. And I think too, just when I'm thinking back to our discussion about her, what her definition of success is, a lot of what that story was resonating to me as well is, like, the success is also in her doing something that's not thinking about herself, the person, right? Like,
Mhm.
in losing yourself in designing, in creative work, and even in business, she's
Mhm.
thinking of something that she's not like, she's not doing a brand that she's the product of, like, she wears her clothes, she's, like, very, like, "I would wear this myself, I'm proud of this," but it's not like she's selling herself, whereas, like, there's other celebrities who have products where they're really just selling themselves and their life allegedly, so I think that's
Mhm.
probably a huge element of it too, is that she got so caught up in the tabloids and reading about herself and focusing that that made her, like, sick, both physically and emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah,
that
yeah,
this
yeah.
career is, like, helping her hold on to something different, I think.
This chart, even though it's a double D-rated chart, is a very compelling chart. If you notice that Venus in Pisces, which Venus is exalted in Pisces, Venus loves to be in Pisces, and Jupiter ruling Pisces around the midheaven, So the midheaven is the most public facing part of the chart. It's what people know you career-wise, etc., right? And in theory, Jupiter and Venus on the midheaven, that's like, we love you. We can't get enough of you. We're obsessed with you. But in Pisces, it can kind of create this idea of image and a distortion of an image and
Mhm.
what is being projected onto me and what image do I feel like I need to hold up versus who do I really feel I am on the inside. And as an Aries woman with Mercury in Aries and Chiron in Aries, she has a Chiron Sun conjunction, it further adds to this sense of distortion in her inability to really like see herself and hear herself. And so, you kind of do feel like this is something she has always perpetually struggled with, whether it's her as this icon, in the pop culture space, whether it's Spice Girls, whether it's fashion, but even before growing up, and this is something you and I had texted about, she talked a lot about how her family wasn't like particular, like she basically tried to downplays her family's like wealth, right? Or and
Mhm.
maybe there's some truth there. Maybe she did grow up poor and then all of a sudden her dad became rich or something, right? But when I
Just,
see
like,
that
middle class probably, you know what I mean?
yeah, like upper middle class. And I mean, when you have Pluto in the fourth house, like that tells me a lot of things. One of those things is, I notice things that maybe aren't particularly savory, but it's happening like in the quiet behind the scenes because Pluto and
Mm.
Libra, there's a lot about wounding in relationships. But Pluto is also wealth, and so sometimes it can also indicate this idea of hidden wealth, especially when you think of the Aries in the 10th house, where there's a lot about survival and surviving in my career, and how do I feel safe in that being underscored by like all of this wealth backing. And that can even be applied to David's wealth, right?
Sure.
Backing her
That
family.
would make
But there's just, again, like the sense of distortion around self environment and like what's being projected onto me and like what am I like there's a struggle here in this chart.
Yeah, that makes sense, a lot of what you're saying too, because we only know what we see, like, that people present publicly, and it's only in recent years where she's kind of allowed people to see the goofy thing, you know?
Mm,
Like, I
mhm.
know, like, a lot of Britney stans, they always, we'll talk about, like, "Oh my god, she's always been so," like, when in the early years, like, she was always super goofy and, like, silly and all this stuff, and it, like,
Mm-hmm.
retracted, the more criticism she got, the more control other people were taking through her life, and of course, like the
Mm-hmm.
conservatorship. And it was interesting the indication, that she's making in the first episode about being little and like having a sense of humor, but other people didn't really understand her sense of humor. So then she
Mm-hmm.
went back, right? And then she had her fellow Spice Girls be like, no, you are funny. Like, lean into this, like, have a little bit of fun. And then I think it went into another cycle of that retraction because she was being made a mockery of for just
Mm-hmm.
like for just existing, right? Like it's like that
Yeah.
classic thing they talk about, like the British tabloids with like the royal family, with, celebrities, all this stuff is like they can be so brutal, especially on women, that why
Yes.
would you want, Meghan Markle, you can think of too, like, why
Absolutely.
would you put
Mm-hmm.
yourself out there? And so all the things that she enjoys, like she probably is still like was always like that with her family, with her friends, all this stuff, but has only really allowed us to see the goofiness again in recent years. I think because,
Mm-hmm.
something like a even before his documentary, I feel like periodically, like she did like, those Vogue 73 questions videos, or she did other little marketing things like that, where she started to do a little wink at the camera and people like really responded to that. I know like I always
Mm-hmm.
respond to that kind of thing when you can laugh at yourself. And so now
Yeah.
she's like letting you in on that a little bit more. She's like, oh, this is safe again. Like, it's not the
Mm.
world that I was in before, where like I couldn't do stuff like that without someone having to have, obviously we talk about all the time, internet culture days, really crazy, but not as many people have their eyes on her because there are so many other famous people, like
Mm-hmm. Everyone's
you're only
stepping
going
in
to
it
have
every
like,
day. Mm-hmm.
yes, yeah, like it's going to be, it's truly the whole like yesterday's news vibe kind
Mm.
of thing. So it's like a little bit safer.
It is interesting. She does have the Mars and Saturn conjunction in Gemini. And it's funny, earlier we did talk about another Mars and Saturn conjunction with Wendy Osefo in her chart in
Hmm.
Scorpio, and how it's again the idea that like Saturn is there to make you do some hard things, and it also rewards you, but it takes time. And so with Mars and Gemini, it is. I can describe Mars and Gemini maybe as a little more scattered, and maybe you've got all these different ideas and you've got all these different thoughts and where you can go. But Saturn's there really to be like, hey, let's hone your POV and let's actually make sure you have a perspective that is reflective of your authenticity, not what you think other people want you to create. And what's interesting is we're recording this amidst a grand air trine. Venus has officially moved into Libra now, and it is forming a grand air trine with Pluto and Uranus. And in Victoria Beckham's chart, you actually do see this grand air trine again. If she is an Aquarius moon based on this time, there's a grand air trine between her moon, this Mars and Saturn, and Uranus in Libra. Here's the thing, I do believe her in that she
Hmm.
feels perpetually like she is an outsider, even though she is very much firmly not an outsider. She kind of is culture, right? She like is content, really. She moves it. And so I just find that fascinating because again, trines don't have to necessarily be a good thing. It can show the goodness in that, she got very popular. Everything she does is pretty successful. In the context of, there's always like people talking about it, whether it's good or bad. But as Taylor Swift says, like good press, bad press in your album release week, like all of it's part of the chaos, and you kind of have to enjoy the chaos in order to survive in this business.
Yep, I agree. I feel like that hits the nail on the head, is that we talk about all the time, like perception's reality, like your inner narrative is the reality. So it's like
Hmm.
we may not see her as that, but that's how she feels. And it comes off as super sincere.
Hmm. What I think is also fascinating is, well, we'll get to the family drama like a little bit later on because I want to touch on David Beckham's Synastry with her, because
Interested.
I haven't looked at them together, which is like hilarious. I thought I would have at the last documentary, but alas, the time has come now. And as you texted me earlier, the Venus Mars is so cute here.
Hmm. We
Venus
love
Mars in Gemini. They're like siblings. It makes sense with the haircuts, when back in the day when their
when they like
haircuts
look alike
mirrored.
and dress alike. Yeah. Like they're very like
Yes.
obsessed with like twinning energy, even though that's not a twin thing.
Yeah.
They're like, wouldn't
Yeah.
it be cute if we did this? And like they're both mutually into it, which is the funniest part.
Well, it's crazy because they're Venus-Mars conjunctions, like both sides, right? Not only just in Gemini, also in Pisces. So they both are
Oh, I
embodying
didn't
this.
see that.
They're a
Unless
double
it's both ways.
Venus-Mars. Yes. I know. That's why we can't get enough of them. That's why like they're Posh and Becks because they have Venus and Mars synastry not just one way, served two ways. And they're served in Pisces and Gemini, mutable signs, which means they adapt with the times. Like they
Yeah.
will always be find a way to stay relevant in whatever generation they, I guess, make it through, you know?
I feel so validated because they've always been like on my before they've like kind of I feel like in like the past 10 years really become mainstream popular, like been one of my underrated celeb couples. And so I'm like, this
Ooh.
makes me feel so much better. I'm like, we just
Yes.
felt like they were, as the kids say, giving couple goals, or as the kids used to say, there's probably something new now. And
Yeah.
so like this is very validating. Like they are, I've always been like they've always just been like into each other, like very supportive all the time. Like the loyalty and like the consistency is there,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they're gonna work
yeah.
it out. And you see that too, as we said, we'll get to the family drama, but like kind of like investing in their kids, investing in their friend circles. They have like both of their families involved in everything. All the, like you always see their
Mm-hmm.
parents for both sets. Like they're always like all of their events are like they are very social, but it is really like their whole family and then like a select kind of inner circle of
Mm-hmm.
like celeb folks. But their people have always like stayed their people, at least on her end. I don't know him as well, but like when I think of
Yeah.
Longoria and how Eva's featured in this documentary, or she does bring in like the other Spice Girls for like, milestone birthdays or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't really like lean on it for like press and attention and stuff like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
as we know, she didn't do the last reunion tour for the Spice Girls.
Mm-hmm.
So she
2019,
doesn't
yeah,
like,
the European tour. Mm-hmm.
I know things I regret not going to, but it was because she didn't go. I didn't go. Um, I digress. But like she doesn't use it for like the attention and the press of it all. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I want you here for like special life moments because we lived, special life moments together. Similar to like when we were talking about Taylor Selena earlier today too. So I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
really like feel like it's always been sincere deep down and like sure, like there could be infidelities and allegations and all this stuff, but like the core of it, I feel like is like kind of soulmatey. You can tell
Yeah.
the synastry says that, but that's like my elementary parasocial perspective.
Yeah. And I love what you said about all of it. Like, I think we talked earlier about how like Victoria doesn't really have a lot of fixed, right? But David
Mhm.
has a lot. David's the opposite. David is so fixed. He has a cap moon. He's a B-rated chart, so that 29 degrees, we're looking at it a little with the wink, but Taurus sun, Taurus rising, Cap, moon. So you want to think, oh, all right, who is the grounding? Who is going to be the stabilizing force? It is David in the relationship. Now, that being said, though, David in of itself does have the Venus Mars square. So, his Venus is on Victoria's Mars, her Venus is on his Mars, but in David's chart, it's squared. And anytime there is like either Venus and Mars conjunction or Venus square situation, anytime Venus and Mars are in conversation, let's just put it that way, you can kind of indicate like a little bit of maybe like restless tension in a relationship because there's the idea of like I want to dominate, but I also want to receive, but also like, there's a there's almost like a balancing act. How much do I give? How much do I like cool off? And so I actually kind of like that there's like an outlet with Victoria for him to work those quirks out.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, you talked about the infidelity stuff, and that's what I was actually going to say too. As much as here's the thing. I feel like celebrities, they're in a totally different playing field when it comes to
Yes.
relationships and relationship goals. And I think, the same way, like, again, it's hard not to bring up the Taylor Swift comparisons for power couple, celeb power couple status, right? But people ask me all the time, they too have a Venus and Mars conjunction in Scorpio. Like, what do you see here? Is this real or is this just for business? And I said, it would be really dumb to kind of, or naive to think of celebrity as just one or the other because they're so intrinsically related to each other, especially when you are mega stars that like are tabloid heavy mega stars. Like your brand becomes bigger than just yourself. And so there's a lot to think about. And so yeah, like they are the only people that can understand you, maybe. Yeah, they have the same type of goals and they can actually reach these power couple goals. But it doesn't mean that all might be roses and butterflies. And with Venus and Mars, all love is a battlefield.
Nice. Good song reference.
In the documentary, I was surprised. This is probably the most surprising thing, was how much they were revealing about the financial losses of the company
Mhm.
and how much David was helping out, which I wouldn't have not expected him to help out, but I was just, when you see someone with this much Taurus in the chart and a Cap moon, you're thinking, and a Saturn in Cancer, like money is real. Like he might be super loaded, but money is very real to him. And so to keep seeing all the red, I cannot imagine how stressful this was for them.
Yes, and I respect it though, because if they hadn't, it's probably would have come out some way, and then that would have been
Hmm.
a much bigger backlash, you know?
Hmm.
It's like you have to confront that head on and say, like, this is the truth. And it probably is something, you'd always see like every few years or so, right? Like things about their marriage being in trouble and this, that, and the third. And it's like, sure, they probably
Hmm.
did have conflict over this feeling, right? Like he is happy to support his wife, but then if he's seeing it not work, and he kind of said that too, I think, in one part of it, to
Hmm.
continuously see it happening and happening. And but hopefully that just means like he had the faith in her that like something was going to sort out. Maybe too, it's like a business angle too for like
Mm.
investors. Now that
Maybe.
now that I'm like a little widely more known, do you want to help us out so we're not like threatening our marriage every time season
Yeah.
rolls around? And it
Yeah.
is interesting, right? Like she has many storefronts, and it's not like she has like the storefronts that then all close down. Like I feel like again,
Hmm.
I'm not a business person. This is just like the little observations. Is like it's not like she has like stores all over the world. I think if it's not just the one in London, it can't be too many. And it's not like
Hmm.
she like was like, I'm gonna open 100 stores and now close down 90 of them or something to that effect. So I think they try to make the best choices. And, I don't understand how things work in that world of like what is required to turn a profit per se, because,
Hmm.
you know, I thought of her again, like as successful, like in a naive sense, in the terms of like the back to like relationships, the people who are loyal to her are loyal to her. Like people, royal family would wear her clothing, Eva will wear her clothing, people
Hmm.
were happy to collaborate with her, which also is like says something about her too. Like their openness
Hmm.
to say like this isn't, Balenciaga, this isn't Valentino, this isn't Chanel, but people want to be at her show. Like people want to be at her
Hmm.
fashion show. I think similar to the way people want to be at the row, right? Like they
I
want
literally was
that
like,
connection too.
the row is probably like the best comp for Victoria Beckham in terms of like
And that's what I'm thinking of too with like,
celeb brand. Yeah.
going from the Olsen twins to going to being two designers that happen to be sisters, right? Like when you were talking
Hmm.
about Posh Spice to Victoria Beckham, they're actually
Hmm.
like when you add in the fashion designer of it all, like that's a perfect analogy as well.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
they'll always be remembered as the Olsen twins and like that little dynasty that they created along with their families. And then
Hmm.
we also just know them as these two grown women who are fashion designers now.
Hmm. That is very true. It is in It is interesting because I had just noticed again the Venus in Gemini and Saturn in Gemini, like that's actually a very Ben and Jennifer synastry. Venus and
My
Saturn, they
other
obvious
faves.
I was gonna say they obviously like linked up earlier this week, but you know admittedly, like this does feel like a very karmic relationship, like a lot of relationships are, but
Mhm.
for his Venus to be on her south node, like I I kind of do feel like there is some behind the scenes stuff happening, obviously, between him and Victoria that we're never going to be necessarily privy to. But there's a
Mhm.
lot about the stories we're telling each other and the narratives that we are, or the scripts that we're playing and the roles that we're playing. And I think this is going to be a very interesting thing to think about considering they're, I think, at like their 28 years of marriage right now, David and Victoria,
Mhm.
which is a whole Saturn return, which, as you know, in the past with, I mean, just the last couple of weeks, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, they went through their Saturn return and their respective Saturn returns, and, the marriage kind of unwound. But for them, their marriage is going through a Saturn return over the next couple of years. So it will actually be interesting to see what comes of this next chapter for the Beckhams. But when I look at the Lilith activations in their chart, it just like kind of reminds me of what she was saying earlier in the documentary where David wasn't the big guy. When he got with Posh, Posh was the
Mhm.
person. And over time, she then the roles kind of reversed, and then she was no longer the man in charge or like the boss of the relationship. And when she had to then ask him for money, there was this pride, there was this element of like, I'm having to ask you of something. I just think her Lilith in Capricorn, especially when it comes to like business and finances, and then having to ask for help, that was like a real pain point I noticed in the chart. But also his Lilith on her Jupiter, like I do think he did really want to be bigger than her or wanted to like rise to her level and like be that celebrity. So
Mhm.
I can imagine that during this relationship and like when as she was trying to figure it out and his star was still rising, like there's a lot there that we're never going to see, but I am very curious. And I wonder if that was also where there was maybe like the bulk of infidelity and things like that, you know?
Oh yeah, like a lot of like the fragile male ego, with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking back, when we're trying to think of like the money that he's been making over the years, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
he was in a lot of like ad campaigns early on before that was common to do. They even said that in his documentary, right? Like that he was a lot of like a fashion guy, which wasn't popular for the footballers back then. And
Mm-hmm.
he owns like the Miami Football Club too, that's been really successful and got messy on
Mm-hmm.
all that. So, he had a lot of like avenues, like revenues of income that would,
Avenues, revenues.
yeah, I'm like, which one is that? But
Avenues.
streams of income, as you could say. And so it is like any relationship is like if you're used to each other being like in certain positions and those roles switch, like that's a test to a long-term relationship is like
Mm-hmm.
we grow through that together and like you said, a lot of mutable energy. So can they adapt to those roles changing? And yeah, there might be some discomfort, but they should be able to
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to do that. One would hope. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of long-term relationships is like that's part of the vows you theoretically make is like, okay, let's see where we're going with this and what we can do to like work through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is something nice about like I don't know what their charts would indicate about parenting per se, but from like my perspective, I think there's something nice about like how they always have like they support their kids, they always have their kids like involved in stuff together, like they bring them in through a lot of stuff. Like they seem really connect and again, like in a public facing way, whereas maybe other celebrities choose to keep their kids private for their own, happiness. It's like it's nice
Mm-hmm.
to like always see like the family unit too. I like it's
Mm.
a very true kind of we can get to Brooklyn, but like at least when the kids are little, like
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah,
they really
yeah.
bond over like their love of their kids too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, for David, right, he's got a Saturn in Cancer, which and a Capricorn moon, which to me immediately, right, if you are a masculine that has the ability to like be sensitive and tap into your feminine, like it's why David, you think of him as like this metrosexual, right? And he's, as you
Hmm.
said, an athlete who's into fashion, like um that wasn't viewed highly upon at the time. And so, you know, but then on the other side, you can kind of see, oh yeah, that's where that feminine is, that's where the family is. And so he definitely is a family man. You can even see it in like the garden, the way he takes care of his homes. Like David's chart's actually like really, really grounded and really fascinating and beautiful. It did make me wonder if, there was like that scene where he was like, "Oh, would you like some chocolate or like whatever the candy bar was?" And she's like, "Oh, I haven't eaten chocolate since like the 2000s or whatever." I do
Hmm.
wonder. I do wonder, especially with someone with this much Taurus, it's like, ooh, you're you know what I mean? There's like a depravity or you're not fully indulging or enjoying. And I think that's where maybe things can get a little tricky. It's like with the Aries, it's go, go, go. And maybe with the Mars and Saturn and Gemini, like again, there's not a lot of grounding there and slow and steady. And for him, it's like there's always grounding and he can really
Yeah.
root in. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he's like always been very, and again, Taurus, and then seeing like Taurus rising too, like he has always been like very open about like his being like a foodie and his love of like
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. And I think like she even like admitted at one point, like a little over a decade ago, probably like I literally just steam fish and vegetables. Like I can't be doing all
Mm-hmm.
this, and I think now again that I don't know if there's like a transit that would indicate that. Like there's something in which I feel like she's letting go, and we've been talking about like 2025 and like Year of the Snake, like there's a lot of like shedding. And so maybe the hope is like she's really letting go of a lot of like what she might have been holding on to, especially in that like Pluto and Capricorn, right? Of like precision
Mm-hmm.
and achievement and order and all that stuff. So maybe she's
Mm-hmm.
starting to take it a little more easy. I think that was like kind of like that's the humor too, but also I'm like, yeah, you are known for like being really strict, but again, because people
Mm-hmm.
were so hard, like you cannot
Yeah.
blame her because it's like she can't win.
Of course, we talk about the home and family. It's hard not to talk about the Beckhams without mentioning this family drama that they've been embroiled in since the spring this year. So, obviously, in the documentary, you did not see a whole lot of Brooklyn. You maybe saw one glimpse of him at the fashion show with Nicola Peltz. I'm not even pronouncing her name correctly, I don't think, but
I think
that
you are.
fashion, okay,
Okay.
we're hoping for the best. That fashion show happened last September 2024, which was during this new eclipse cycle in Pisces and Virgo. So, this documentary coming on the heels of this last eclipse season, same eclipse narrative is interesting. Um, what do you know of the family drama?
So I like don't read too much about it, like
Mm-hmm.
all their family stuff in general. Like, I really just see like whatever they like people post on Instagram, right? Like is the long and short of like
Mm-hmm.
what I see. So,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
there, but then you would see like, like a page 6 headline or something like that about this whole situation. And it seemed like, most of the time when their kids have had like other relationships, although he's the oldest and he's not even that old. Like I think he's like at this
28? Mm-hmm. 26,
oh, maybe he's
28?
older. I can't tell time. So maybe he's a real adult now because the other boys are like in their 20s now too, I guess.
They're young. They're young, a lot younger.
But
Hmm.
yeah, like he's the oldest. So like we had only really seen examples with him at first. Like, I
Hmm.
think they weren't like super, involved one way or the other with like he dated like Chloe Grace Moretz or whatever.
He
But they were
did.
like kids. So I don't think there was like as much like we're taking this so seriously that there's gonna be involvement
Yeah.
or whatnot. Like it's just like, oh, these are just two kids dating. But he is like an interesting figure to me because like I don't really think of things in like Nepo baby light. I just think of it as like you're a public facing young adult. So we're seeing like how
Mm.
he used to navigate adulthood, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
when you think of
yeah.
like Dakota Johnson, you're like Dakota Johnson is an actress that happens to, be a Nepo baby. But like we just see her as like she's always been acting, right? Like that's
Hmm.
she hasn't been like, oh, I'm gonna do like afraid like Nicole Richie is like somebody who took a while to figure it out maybe at first, but now she's kind of got her path. So with
Yeah.
him, it's like he was going to be a photographer, like he was doing all this photography stuff. And then he's like, I really like making these cooking videos, like very Benny Blanco, um, and analogous. And then
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has like, I think a hot sauce
He
brand now.
does.
And then,
Yes.
but then he's also in this relationship. And then he's like, and he has his dad modeling this for him. Like, the dad has like tattoos of like all of their family's names and like his true love, Victoria, and all this stuff. And so, like, that's like very normalized to him. And so like he has like Nicola's eyes tattooed on his body somewhere. Like he's very like
Hmm.
this. I think he's a Pisces. I don't know if you did his chart, but I want to
I
say he's
didn't hold on, let me keep talking, keep talking. I'm like gonna
yeah.
Google
And I
Brooklyn
definitely don't know
back.
hers. But like, like he's very like it seems like very like emotionally tied. And so at first you would think
Mm.
it's like, oh, you know,
Pisces, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Like, so you would think like with and now like that we know that like Victoria and David have the Venus, Mars, and Pisces, you know, they are like a really sentimental family, like really emotional, like really all or nothing kind of energy.
Hmm.
And so I think he is like that with her. And then I don't know what she is like that has like brought this like discomfort in. Cause like what I know of her is that she's an Epo baby of like some kind of like either director or businessman or something who has associations with our president. So that already discolors them, he's friendly with
Mm.
our president. So already puts him in
Right.
a different kind of light with me, like part of that Palm Beach conservative crowd. So I'm biased to be like Team Beckham because I don't the things that she's associated with, and she's kind of like a Nepo baby who doesn't really have anything like consistent going on. Like she's done like I'm trying acting, I'm trying modeling. I think she
Mm.
directed something once, but like, you don't really see if whatever her career is, like you don't see it really steadily,
Mm-hmm.
like that. Not to say she's not a bad person, but she's very like to me socialite energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm glad you brought up Brooklyn because for whatever reason I did not have his chart loaded. He does have an A-rated chart. And
Oh,
so as you pointed out, the Pisces sun makes a lot of sense. Like it's so actually I would say it is extra messy now looking at the synastry between the both of them because yeah, if you have a Venus Sun, Jupiter Sun conjunction, like Victoria is probably very fond of Brooklyn and vice versa. They just get each other. But I think there is this standoff between wife and mom that he is trying to navigate. And of course, all of this really kind of came to a head this year in April, I think, where they had missed David Beckham's birthday. Gave its like 50th birthday or something. That was when like the media kind of caught wind of it. And I think it was a function of Romeo maybe dating Kim Thurnhall, whatever her name is, someone that Brooklyn had previously dated. So there was like
oh,
that drama as well. And so, Nicola did not want to show up, or Nicola and Brooklyn did not want to show up to David Beckham's birthday because Romeo brought this person. But again, the rumors are swirling that this has really stemmed from um, back in 2022 when they got married because Nicola did not want to ultimately wear a dress designed by Victoria Beckham. Even though she had maybe commissioned, maybe there was work that had already gone into making the dress, she went with another dress. And then after that point, there was a kind of a bigger problem between the both of them that has snowballed into surprise wedding vow renewals during the Mercury retrograde back in August, and none of the Beckhams were present for the vow renewal. So you can tell there's like shit going on. And even looking at the chart now, when I think about, all right, earlier I said, Victoria Beckham has like Pluto in her fourth house, home,
mhm.
family. That 4 degree of Libra is important because if you have cardinal placements, and as you can see here, she has Mercury in Aries at 9. He also has Mercury in Aries at 1 degree, Jupiter at 4 degrees, Venus at 13. We had a Venus retrograde in Aries earlier this year in March and April, which would have caused a huge, I would say, wedge if you have differing values. Like it could have really, drawn some hard lines with relationships at that point. So it makes a lot of sense to me that there is actually real drama. It's not just like rumors or conspiracy or hearsay. It's
Oh,
very
it's
much
it's
there.
real. Like whatever
Mm-hmm.
there is there's a real divide. That's not a coincidence of like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, like this is just stuff that's made up. Like again,
Mm-hmm.
they all do so many things together as a family. And I think a lot of like that Pisces energy I can see is like that sentimentality like tied together. And
Yeah.
it's taken very personally. And then also this is just like more anecdotal, but like, my cousin is an Aries woman and she's a mother of two boys.
Mm-hmm.
They have not brought someone home yet, but I know like her expectations are very high. So it's like
Mm.
I could also see like whatever, you know, socioeconomic background Victoria came from, she's always
Mm-hmm.
right. Like, so even if she came from a wealthy background,
Mm-hmm.
she's really prided herself, right, on at least like working to achieve something, whether that's like through performing, through starting her family, through, the fashion design, successful or not, like she's always working towards something, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's
Mm-hmm.
out of the house. She's not just like she did the WAG era, as she said, like where she was just rebelling and like shopping for 3 years. But after she grew out of that, she was like, okay, let's be a human again.
Mm-hmm.
So if Nicole is like kind of what I perceive her to be from the very limited knowledge I have, there might also
Mm-hmm.
be like kind of like, I kind of don't respect you.
Yes. Oh my God, no.
Um,
Respect was literally a word that kept coming to mind when I looked at Nicola and Victoria's chart, like their
yeah.
synastry even, honestly.
Yeah, like
Um,
that would be my sense of it, right? It's like,
hmm
yeah, she claims that she's like kind of creative and is an actress slash, but also Brooklyn's not really doing anything. So it's like
hmm
maybe she would hope that he'd have a partner that would help like build him to be the man that he could be. You know what I mean? Like you kind of want that for your kids,
mm,
right? Is like if you have the kid that's like kind of not that I think he's like waffling or suffering at any point, right? Like, but you already see the other two brothers each have like their own interests. Like I think one is like actually directly interested in modeling, and then the other one like wants to be a DJ or a musician or something, like where they're
Mm.
like focused. And then you have you know, my dad's a Pisces. There's a lot of people in my family who have Pisces, severe Pisces plus, you know, you kind of are like a little wishy-washy and you need like the right person to like put you on that path, you know? And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, oh, this is not who I see for my son. I think it's definitely
Yeah.
the foundation of it. And so then it just like, as much as they've tried to accept her and include her, you know,
Mm.
whether it's that they make her feel bad or whether she like wants him to be in like embedded in her family rather than her embedded in his family, despite, you know, the fact that they both took each other's last names for equality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like a whole thing. It's just, you
Mm.
can tell me more based on the charts, but like
No, that
it all
makes
is like very fishy to me, no pun intended.
yeah, it's interesting because earlier, you know how I said, oh, Brooklyn's got the sun in Pisces, so like that's cute with Victoria's Venus and Jupiter.
Mhm.
Nicola's got her Saturn right there, you know? And so Saturn and the sun are very different energies. Like the sun is warm and radiant, and it's like, okay, yeah, like good times. Saturn's a little colder. So Saturn together, Nicola can actually help Brooklyn grow up, can kind of stand on his own. Because, yeah, maybe there was a little bit of enmeshment. Maybe it was a little like you're too enmeshed in this family, you have no identity. Because it's hard, like when you have two superstar parents, like
Yeah.
where do you go from there, right? It's
A lot of
difficult.
pressure.
It's a different kind of difficult. It's, you know, privilege difficult, right? But
Yeah, but it's still
nevertheless,
hard,
it's
you
hard.
know,
It's very hard, especially if
even
you're
if
a
you
Pisces.
weren't famous, if you have 2 high
Yes.
parents and you're not feeling like you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing is, I think you said respect. Yeah, I don't think Victoria really respects Nicola. Um, but it's ironic because her and Brooklyn are basically kind of just doing the same thing. But also, they've got this really interesting Jupiter and Venus sag and Neptune conjunction, which you can actually kind of think of like, oh yeah, like good times. And, you know, again, maybe like for pictures and everything, everything is fine on the surface and we get along. But Neptune can kind of, it's almost like Victoria doesn't have that confidence in the same way Nicola has at that age. And so I can also see a situation where Nicola might think she knows best, therefore, you know, my
Mhm.
word goes. And now Brooklyn's like, okay, yeah, I'm with my wife, so this word goes. But allegedly, he really wants to desperately try to like reconcile with the family before the holidays or something, which I wonder if that might be what
I
the new
think
moon in
you
Libra could
know,
be.
yeah. Oh, true. Yes. I mean, that would be like what one hopes, right? Like, I think
Hmm.
he, for as much pressure as that is, I think he really does like love his family. And I think they, like I said, like I really am insistent on like there's something about that unit that to me just feels super strong. Whereas there's lots of other big families or famous families where we're all related, but we don't, I mean, even like the Kardashians, right? It's like,
Mm.
would you all even really talk to each other if you weren't, you know, financially obligated to do so for a living? You know, so there's something really
Yeah.
sincere about that. And maybe they wouldn't just be still demons, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of people, I feel like they just really do all really love each other a lot. And
Hmm.
it probably is like, right, this is the first marriage too for they don't know how to like maybe operate with their kids not being their kids alone, right? Like their kids,
Mm.
their own units, making their own decisions without them. You know, we don't know what financial ties he has to them versus his own income. You know, there's like a
Hmm.
lot of power dynamics, I think, in there probably too that complicate it.
Mm.
And so it's like, yeah, we're fine giving you money, but are we giving her money if she's like also a rich heiress that does nothing? You know, like it could
Mm.
be anything. Like this is all super speculative. Like I don't actually really know much about it, but just thinking of like family dynamics I am familiar with in real life, it's like
Hmm.
those are all things that happen in a lot of families, right?
Hmm.
I think this is just a transition they've never had to encounter before. And so
Yeah.
it could be that plus with a polarizing personality is super complicated. Like it happens all the time in the commoners' lives too. So it's like
Yeah.
where you go to a wedding and you know that the in-laws hate the bride. And you know the bride
Hmm.
hates the in-laws. And you're like, I'm happy for this couple and I'm happy to be at this party, but it feels tense. You know,
Mm.
allegedly, as we know, there was the what did we say? It was like uh again. when you assume, you make an ass of you and me. Like they thought they were getting a first dance from Mark Anthony, and then Mark Anthony ended up doing a speech instead, and then he like said
Mm-hmm.
that Victoria was the most beautiful person in the room, and then it like takes person like whether or not any and all of that is true, or like, do we think it was with malice? Do we think, like that's family shit. Like people take things so personally, and then at this level of fame, like you were saying, like every single person in this situation has a massive ego, whether or not they're good people. So they're
Mm-hmm.
each going to think it's about them. Like we said with
Mm-hmm.
on the other episode with Taylor Swift doing a speech mentioning herself in someone else's like wedding speech. It's like
Yeah.
somehow we're still making it about ourselves when it's not.
Mm-hmm. I like to think we all think we're more agreeable than we really
Mhm.
are. And especially with someone with this much Aries, and like I mean, Mars in the South Node, like Victoria is very Aries. And so maybe it's the idea like some of her words can be quite biting and harsh and below the belt. And maybe it was like a reaction, it was a stubborn. And I can see a situation where it would be like, oh, why didn't you just say that? Why didn't you just say that? And now it's like become a bigger thing. But like this is a woman who literally spent $75,000 on plants in 1 year for her office as her company was like bleeding out money, and no one had the gall or the balls to tell her that's fucked up until an outside investor that she really needed and respected was telling her that. Same with Roland, right? Like Roland came in, was her mentor, and was like, "Nope, this is
Yeah, you
brutal. This
can't
is
do this.
what." Yeah, like he was
The only
very
response
clear
to that
cut.
directness. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you're not like direct like that, but it also again comes from this place of like, do I respect you already or not? Or are you just like some
Did I make up
li
my mind? Yeah.
little girl? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Little girl. It always
Mary
comes back to
Cosby.
Bravo.
I also think it would be interesting if, in theory, Nicola does have that Taurus moon. Like, because then you think, oh my God, moon, sun synastry again at this point would be cute. But there's like a friction. They don't see eye to eye. So it will be very interesting to see in not this Saturn return, right? Obviously, because David and Victoria, like their Saturn returns coming up in about like 6 years. But it will be very interesting to also see what happens to them at that Saturn return. Uh,
Yes. Because they did, get married pretty young.
yes.
His parents did too. And they've, so far navigated their individual Saturn returns, as you said, and
Mm-hmm.
have the couple ones. So, but yeah, I don't know. Like, and he has I was like cursorily scanning because I was like, I know he's dated other people. But I think the Chloe Grace Moretz was probably like the most serious one, perhaps. But I
Mm-hmm.
did, again, bringing it back to Bravo, I forgot he dated the girl from Summer House once for like a couple
Lexi.
months. Yeah.
Lexi. He did date
I just
Lexi.
saw it and I just laughed so hard. I was like, right, got it. I
That's
forgot.
amazing.
Like
I
her true
totally
claim
forgot
to
about that.
fame
I mean, she
is
dated some good people compared to like what she had
this
to
is
deal
the other
with.
one I was thinking of. It was a model named Hannah Cross. Like she was the other one that was like
Mm.
a long-term partner, I think, before Nicola.
Oh,
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, so he's really had
Interesting.
yeah, like those two relationships prior. Again, he's much younger at the time. Like, he's basically like 20 when he starts dating Nicola. So like those other relationships before, he's just a kid. So I don't think, his parents would have
Yeah.
like stock in that, right? Like, oh, this is cute, they're nice, they're teenagers being teenagers. And then yeah. And then if you have, like
Yeah.
you said, the drama of if one of the brothers is dating an ex, I can't imagine a Pisces taking that well.
Oh my God.
But also it's still weird,
It
As
is
someone who's
weird.
watching The Summer I Turned Pretty, if this was not a fictional show, I'd be like, what?
It
Why
is
are
a little weird.
sleeping with two brothers? I don't like
Oh
it.
my, no, I need to still like, get on. I know I'm like falling off my content watching. Actually, what's really interesting thinking about Brooklyn, because he's not in his Saturn return technically yet. Like he's a Saturn in Taurus at 0 degrees, but that just like means Pluto is squaring it right now, in Aquarius. And also with the Jupiter and Mercury at that early cardinal Saturn and Neptune. So like he he naturally has this Neptune Saturn square in his chart, so whatever Pluto is activating. And I can kind of see a situation where there is, again, like he is. He is trying to figure himself out. He's trying to become who he needs to be. And maybe there is an overbearing dominance at home that Nicola is helping him break through,
Yeah.
that otherwise his Pisces ass is never gonna do so.
So hopefully she does like, prove Victoria wrong and it's like, oh no, I am like helping him, just maybe not with like your surveying.
Claws.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like I said, Aries is harsh. I know it really well.
Aries
And
is
it is like it's
harsh.
just like constant pop-offs and then being like, what? That's just how I talk. And you're just like, okay, you can't always talk like that to people.
Yeah.
Like I'm used to it. I've known you since I'm born, but like you can't talk like that to people and expect them to like be okay, or
Mm-hmm.
like take it on the channel. Like not everyone's gonna take that well, and you have to like be open to adjusting.
Mm. It is interesting. He is going through his Mars return, and obviously, again, the documentary did release, and there was very minimal mention of him, maybe one little picture of him. But I do wonder how that's making him feel also, because he does have a Libra moon, because he wants to keep the peace so bad, and
Libra
he
moon and Libra rising is a lot.
well, we don't know if he's a Libra rising. Oh no, he does.
Oh,
He's an A rated. He is
well,
a yeah,
yeah.
he is
When
Libra
you said
rising.
that, I was like, that
Yes.
probably is true too, because like they were so closely watched, like almost like the royal family with that delivery. So like I was like,
Yeah.
this would I would believe it's an A rating because people were so vigilant in like a creepy way, like
Yes.
they probably didn't
No,
even
it's
disclose that. It's
true.
the tabloids knew that. So
No, that is very true.
yeah,
And I even
Libra,
said,
the two Libra major placements.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing. He's also got seventh house placements, right? And so you can kind of think of the seventh house, does it belong to me or does it belong to someone else? And if you are a boy with a mom, the seventh house naturally to me is like, all right, that's what mom's gonna do. And so you can kind of see that's all Victoria right there in the seventh house. Dominating, right? And that's his chart ruler also. So he's trying to figure out how to assert himself artistically. He's trying to figure out again his artistic POV, which might mean that he needs the help of a relationship to move him out of this, to get serious about like who he wants to, be in the future, who he wants to surround himself with. It is interesting. Saturn does rule his fourth house of home and family, that same Saturn that is getting activated. Neptune in the fifth house, I can kind of see like, yeah, you might have had a very extraordinary life, and hopefully it was filled with creativity. Otherwise, it can feel hollow and empty. And so now there's a sense of how do I really fill my cup? So, done, done, done. I didn't realize how like, interesting this Beckham family drama was actually. I remember because we had talked about it like
We always
when
have
it
like
was
a nice surprise
happening.
in our conversations, I think, that we don't
Yes,
plan to get into. So it always works out that way.
it always works out. And again, like because it was happening during Mars retrograde, I'm sorry, Venus retrograde, it was like, okay, yeah, like it makes sense. All this stuff is happening, but we didn't have the time, or like I didn't have the time to like go back in and like look at it really and like catch up on what was happening. But then when this documentary came out, obviously this coming out with, it's an interesting set of transits because Venus is opposing Saturn. So there's like a reality check. There's, again, like we all got to see beneath the veil of like, ooh, this is like really what's the truth behind your financial situation. But yeah, it was an interesting fun time for the document release. Post the full moon in Aries. She is an Aries sun. He is a Libra moon. So like this is a very big release for this family and hopefully a way forward for this family.
Yes. That would be a nice, happy ending to 2025.
That would be, oh gosh, my God, we're already close to the end of 2025, which is crazy to think.
I know it's felt like it's 5 years and 5 seconds all at the same time.
I love
Yeah.
that you love her so much given your Libra, because like again, Libra and Aries, like in the sister
Yes.
signs of it all, like you guys, like they're more similar. You guys are more similar than
Well, and
me.
now I see like the Aquarius conjunction, and
Yeah.
Gemini. So, hey twin.
I mean, here's the thing. Her chart really speaks to why it was such a success, her being part of the Spice Girls. And I think one thing that I said to you in the text leading up to the episode was her chart also screams to me that there's no like her goal in this lifetime was to find her identity and be herself and to own that. And so far growing up, everything was based on relativism. What you are not, I am this, and I want to be this. So like I'm gonna like I'm gonna try to make myself this. But everything was about maybe not fitting in and how a group dictates who you should be. But what she should be really doing is dictating who she is, and therefore everyone else acquiesces. So there's been always a push-pull dynamic. She's very successful in a group, but
But she can stand on her own.
she can stand her own, but I almost do wonder if she would be more successful if she were still in a group, but she can just, there's more space to carve and do her own thing. Like
True.
Paramore, like Paramore is a
Mhm.
band forever and ever, and Hayley Williams has always said like Paramore is something completely different. I'll come back to it, I'll not, but I will always go back to it. If I have something I want to say, I will do all of this. I'll say all these other things. It is very Mel B. Don't forget where you came
True.
from.
Nice. Well, thank you.
Yes. Well, thanks, Ruby, for coming back one more time. Chat VB. We'll be back with another deep dive, I'm sure, very, very soon. But like, subscribe, share with your Astro besties, and take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I'll be back.
Bye.
Bye.